This week we've been doing our 15-minute parent conferences, and I feel like they have been going really well. I think that they're super important to have. I wish every gym would do this. I think it's one of those things where we've been able to meet with our families and just really get to know them better, A, because our families don't come in the gym a lot, and then B, also we get to get ahead of the problems. I think a lot of times when you wait till the middle of the season or the end of the season to touch base with families, all these issues that have been happening all year long start piling up, and that just becomes a list of problems and a list of drama where there's a lot of fires that you can put out early. And these parent conferences that we've been doing have been absolutely amazing. What are a few things that you feel like you've taken from these meetings and that have really benefited not only our program, but our season with these people?
I think it has been really good to learn of goals from our kids that maybe we wouldn't have known otherwise. Like, I know we have a lot of kids that maybe are trying out for high school cheer or are in high school and maybe want to try high school cheer, or they want to make the next level team next year. And these are just goals that I don't think we would have assumed if we hadn't known otherwise. So it's been really good to get to know our parents, and for our parents to hear feedback from us just in terms of how their athlete is doing on their team. I think it also helps us to align with our families so far from tryouts.
Can you take us through how we went through some of the topics with our families on how you audited their routines, and when they came in, you were able to tell them, this is Campbell's routine and this is every section that she's in or she's not in and what she's doing the entire routine?
Yeah, I mean, our families came in, and we start with how do they like their team, because the goal is for everyone to enjoy their experience. And then we would just go through, for example, I have Sally and she side bases the opening and she is in the tucks and she's in the jumps. And I know she's really been trying to work on her standing tumbling. She's not in that section right now, but it's definitely something that we rep out at practice. So even if she's not competing, she is still getting the practice on that. But I think it's just been really good to communicate with our families how our athletes are doing, but then also just how they're doing as athletes at practice. We always try to touch on if they get along with their team, if they're easily coached, if they take correction. And I think it's just been really eye-opening from all sides to just get really good feedback from parent and coach.
At the end of every meeting, we asked, what are her goals for next year? Because I think what it does is it allowed us to really figure out what these athletes' goals were for next year, and we can give them a roadmap to get there, or if those goals are unrealistic, we're able to let them know, like, hey, she might not be ready for that next season, given this might be her first year on level 3 and she's really far away from her level 4 skills. And I think that that's what's really important, and you're able to head off those conversations earlier. And I think that's what matters. And if not, at least you can give them a checklist of skills and things they need to have by tryouts, so they can go home and look at it and talk with their athlete of how realistic is this goal. And you don't have to do that in April, the week of tryouts when everybody's freaking out.
Yeah, I think that that's been the biggest advantage of these meetings, is that we are still so far from tryouts, and every athlete's path is different, whether they maybe are aging out of their division they're in right now, or they do want to level up, or they're not ready to level up. There's just so many different avenues, and I think having these conversations so early has been really helpful in terms of helping our parents navigate that, because there are just so many paths of cheerleading and just everybody does something different.
Right, absolutely. And I think that that's one thing that is different about working at Mustang, is that we hold these parent conferences. We're always managing our teams, and we really focus on going above and beyond to make sure that our families are just having a great experience and that they're in the loop of what we're doing with their athletes. Yeah. Switching gears, you know, we talk a lot about this in our industry, but making a career coaching is really difficult. It is something, I'm 37 now, and I think until I was like 25 years old, I felt like I made no money. It was really, really difficult, because I think being a career coach for a living is like being a photographer or being an interior designer. It's really hard because everybody can do it. The entry level is so easy to do it. What is some advice? I get this question a lot from DMs from younger coaches, and they're 19, 20 years old. What is some advice you would give some younger coaches to help them make a career coaching cheerleading?
I think the first piece of advice, there's a couple. I think the first one is that you have to understand that every athlete's coached differently. Those athletes are going to hopefully end up on your teams. And so you have to figure out how to navigate those athletes in order to create successful teams. I think if you can create successful teams and you can also bring another element, whether it's choreography or you manage your parents really well, that is the best path to being a career coach, I think.
Coaching good kids is easy. Coaching the difficult kids that aren't as talented and taking the teams that aren't as good from not having the skills to being able to choreograph the routines, to being able to get them to hit zero with a not super stacked team. That's what separates you from the other coaches. And I also think that being able to do everything. I think when you're young and when you first start at a gym, you've got to be involved in every aspect of the program. You've got to do the open gyms. You've got to do the birthday parties. You have to do the clinics. You have to coach the teams. You have to do the classes because that's how you're going to get your name out there. That's how you're going to be known in the community because you have a hand in everything that's happening in the program. And I think a lot of times we see a lot of these younger coaches that come into the industry and they're like, they want to coach the top teams and they want to just be a team coach and that's it. And there's only so many hours a week for team coaches. You have to be able to earn your stripes doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you just have to be willing to do anything and everything because like you said, like if your face is on the birthday parties and your face is on the open gyms and your face is on the novice teams, like I think, like you said, a lot of coaches get caught up in this, I have to coach the top teams. Like you just can't start at the top. You have to work your way up. I think it's like any other job where you don't start as the CEO of a company. You start working for the company and you just keep getting promoted.
So when it comes to practices, attendance is so important.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of our families forget that. And the reason attendance is so important is because this isn't like other sports. This isn't like football. There's no bench. There's nobody we can just pull in. Yes, some teams have alternates, but we don't. And most teams don't have alternates. So when your athlete doesn't show up, it ruins the entire practice because your pyramids can't go full out, that stunt group can't go, that basket can't go. Coaches practice plan and they game plan. And then when you don't show up and you don't show up last minute, it wrecks the entire practice plan. And I think sometimes families, we don't really have this issue, but I know that it is an issue industry-wide. Why else is attendance so important?
It's really hard to build a cohesive team if you don't have all members of the team present all the time. As far as Mustang goes, I can speak on us. We really do try to make it work. We try to work around the school cheer. We do try and work around the activities. If it's important to them, it's important to us. But at the same time, we do ask that our parents just respect our practice time as well. Because like you said, it does just play a big role in getting ready for competitions. Even if you have an athlete that isn't necessarily involved in the stunts, their tumbling is not going to get better in the section that they're in because they're not doing it with the people that are in the section with them. So it is just really hard to get people to gel when they're not there.
I think you hit it on the head when you said respect. I think what a lot of families don't understand is that when you don't come to practice, it's disrespecting your team. Especially if you do it frequently, it makes it seem like you don't care. Even though you probably do, your team eventually and the families on your team eventually feel that and take that as a lack of respect. And I think it's so important for you to make sure that the team comes first because it is what you signed up for. And when you don't come to practice, it affects so many other people.
Yeah.
When it comes to coaching, it's a very emotional thing. It is something that you're so invested in it and you want the athletes to do so well. But one thing I think a lot of coaches struggle with is when one mistake happens or one bad practice happens, it wrecks their entire day. For some coaches, it wrecks their whole week. But I think it's so important that you have to be able to move on. That if you had a bad practice with your youth 3 at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock when your junior 4 comes in, you gotta switch modes. I think we talk about this a lot in our staff meetings where your bad practice and the mistakes that are happening cannot become your identity. It cannot be your whole vibe. You cannot be mad at the entire world the rest of the day because we always talk about it. The mistakes and the corrections can't be personal. The athletes have to know that you're not actually mad at them. It's okay to be mad at what they're doing. It's okay to be mad because you didn't lock out your leg and you busted your tuck, but they can't feel that you don't like them. How do you think coaches can deal with letting it go, re-engaging, and letting the mistakes not affect their entire mood?
I think that it is very similar to our kids when they do a routine. I think we preach to our kids, don't let a mistake snowball your rest of your routine. I think, like you said, we as coaches have to be better about not letting it snowball the rest of our practice. But I think a good way to be able to move on and to be able to handle that is you have to take it. It's almost like a 2-day competition. The mistakes happen, you write it down, you read it out, you adjust, you move on, and then you have to just refresh for the next routine. Because we ask the kids to do the same thing. And I think it's hard as an athlete to move on as quickly as your coaches want to when you see that they don't move on as quickly as you would like them also. I think it's a mutual thing. And I think once you address it, you obviously keep an eye out for the mistakes. You obviously don't want them to happen again. I think if it's recurring issues and it's really just wrecking your day, maybe taking a look at the stunt or the tumbling pass or whatever's in their routine that's really just wrecking your mood and just adjusting. Because I think there's something to be said about feeling good, about cleaner routines that are not as hard, and then building on that. And it just puts you in a better mood as a coach that way also, versus just going for it. Everyone's really frustrated. You're frustrated. You're telling your kids, don't let your mistakes affect you, but you're essentially doing the exact same thing.
I think it's just like we tell the kids, shake it off, move on, do the next full out. I think we as coaches have to make sure we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, agreed.
I think something that's really special about cheerleading is that you're able to make a whole new group of friends. I think that you have your school friends and you have your friends you grew up with, and then you get to be on a team with kids from different schools, different communities, and you create a whole new level of friends.
Oh my goodness, it's amazing. I think, obviously we're biased because we coach cheerleading, but I think cheer is one of the best sports for that reason, because I think in no other sport do you have the type of bonds that you have in cheerleading, because you grind together, you're so close with your stunt group, and it's just so important also because when there's drama at school, you know you can turn to your cheer friends. And maybe they're in different grades, so they just go through different stages of life than you, but you all have this common bond, and that's around your routine, and it's around your coaching, and it is around just a sport that you love so much. So it's almost friendships that are formed 100% on just joy for the sport that you have and for loving what you do. And I think that that's why those friendships also are just so meaningful, because there really isn't a lot of drama there. You are all going through the trenches together. So it's so important, and it's really beautiful.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I felt some of my lifelong friends I met through cheer, and I wouldn't have met them if I didn't do cheerleading. And I think that's really cool. And it's also nice too, because if there's like drama with your school cheer friends and you're mad at them and they're gossiping about you, you can just talk about it with your cheer friends and you can hang out with them. And so that's pretty tight.
It's also people that don't necessarily know the people you go to school with. So it's nice to be able to vent to them and it have no effect on your other life.
100%. All right, so let's get to the Q&A part of this.
Yay.
This is a Q&A. We asked a bunch of questions on Instagram. So our first question is, do you coach your novice teams as hard as your older teams, your elite teams? And this is coming from a mom who has on a team from 6 to 11 years old. It's a novice team. She says that the team is literally scared of the coaches. And that should never happen, even on your elite team. They shouldn't be scared of the coaches. But to answer your question, yes and no. We coach our novice teams the same discipline, accountability, and the same standards to be able to go on the floor and put a clean routine. But at the same time, we understand that our novice teams, we tell people, this is for our multi-sport athletes that want to come in and see what cheerleading is about. This is not our senior five wanting to win NCAA and get a summit bid. This novice team doesn't even have difficulty on the score sheet. So if you're coaching them that hard with no difficulty on the score sheet, we need to do some soul searching.
It's just not that deep.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, to preface, I love novice, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said yes and no, because the standard is for these kids to be successful. The standard is that for them to go out on the floor and to look polished and to compete a routine, but also the standard is for them to fall in love with the sport. And so I think that we walk a fine line of trying to navigate your novice kids of are they performing well because they love the sport, or are they performing well because they're scared of how you might react? It's just like you said, I mean, it's just not that deep. I mean, I think novice teams can be really successful. I've coached so many novice teams and I love it. And we do coach them really hard, but I think the coaching and the taking it personal are very different. Like, your athlete should never be scared of you. It should be, I want to do really well because I love cheerleading, but I also love my coaches because I know they believe in me.
Novice teams are the introduction into cheerleading. And if you're scaring them and they don't want to be there, you've ruined it.
And they probably won't keep doing cheerleading.
And you've completely ruined it.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Next question says, the hardest part of putting stunt groups together. Ooh. For me, I think the hardest part of putting stunt groups together is finding tall back spots.
Yes.
Because I can't teach your kid to be tall. I think that getting the right sized athletes on your team is probably the hardest part, and then having the flexible flyers to be able to do the body positions and to do the stunts.
Yeah.
That to me is the hardest part.
I think another hard part of building stunt groups is that sometimes when you have the cards laid out, maybe you won't necessarily have a flyer that you thought was going to fly. Well, maybe they won't fly on this team because either the bases are too short or for whatever, maybe lack of flexibility or whatever that might be.
Telling flyers they're no longer flying.
Yeah. I mean, we're not out there to crush people's dreams. Like, our goal is not to make you feel like you're not a good flyer. Our goal is not to make you feel like you're not enough. But we do have to put together the best stunt groups and curate the best routine that's going to be the most successful. It's a team sport. And as much as we would love for everybody to have that flying opportunity or have that basing opportunity, it just isn't really the way it works.
Yeah, that is the hardest part. I mean, I just think it's the emotion of it and then having to tell people that they're not doing the position they love anymore. Next question. What determines what spot you get on a team? Well, I think your experience, number one. And number two, I think it's your tumbling. I think the tumbling is your insurance to make a team. I think that if you're able to do the tumbling, the running tumbling, the standing tumbling, and have good jumps, then you know you're going to be in those sections, especially if you're leveling up, because the stunting, if you're leveling up, is kind of a question mark, unless you were a superstar at the level before and you know they're going to crush it.
Yeah.
But you have to have the tumbling as insurance, because if not, if the stunting doesn't work out, you're not in any sections.
Yeah.
So if you can do the tumbling with good execution and the jumps, those are things you can control before the tryout, then you have a better shot of making that level.
Yeah.
And then your stunting and your experience weighs heavy. But I do think the tumbling is the insurance.
Oh, yeah. I think it's absolutely your insurance. And I think one thing that happens industry-wide, and we see it here at Mustang, 100% of the kids that try out for the level that they want to make normally can do all of the tumbling. They can do the one to tuck. They can do the back walkover tuck. They can do the layout. They can do the specialty to layout. But only about 10% of those kids do the tumbling really well. And when I say really well, I mean, are their feet together? Is their set arms all the way up by their ears? Do they stick and stand? Do they have a confidence before they do the skills? And that is going to secure your spot on a team, because we're looking for that 10% before we look for anybody that can do all of the skills. I would rather you have a perfect 1 to tuck and 2 to tuck than be able to do every single level 4 skill, because if it's perfect, you're gonna be in the routine in that section. But if you can do everything and it's just mediocre, then we really don't have a spot for you, unless, like you said, you're a superstar stunter or a super flexible flyer. So that tumbling is just so important.
The tumbling is important. It's the insurance, but then also your experience weighs heavy. Someone asked, what's your favorite part of coaching? The stunts, the tumbling, or the teams? For me, it's a combination of all of them. I love my tumbling private lessons, but my favorite tumbling private lessons are the ones that are working on skills for their teams. I love the stunting privates, but I also love working on kids that are working on things for their teams. And there's nothing like team coaching. I think the easiest way to answer that is I love all of them, but I wouldn't give up my teams just for tumbling or just for stunting lessons.
Yeah.
I think that the team journey, being able to coach teams, take something in the summer that doesn't look great, choreograph the routines, get them better, push them throughout the season. The highs are highs and the lows are lows in the competition season. That journey to me is irreplaceable.
Oh, yeah. I think my favorite part of coaching is definitely also the team, because you get to know your athletes through a team experience way I want to say better, then you would get to know like them if you just did a tumbling lesson with them. You get to know their families. You get to know how they operate. You get to know sometimes both their parents and their siblings will come and watch practice. So you just get so close with these parents that the personal connection is just makes that team experience so special. And I think that that's why we try and make our families enjoy it so much, because it just makes it so much more enjoyable as a coach. When your families like it, your kids like it. When your kids like it, you like it. So just overall, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the competition season is just special. It's second to none. Next question is judging truly fair in small divisions when you have teams with 3 stunt groups versus 5 stunt groups? To answer that question, the judging is fair across the board. What could be considered not fair is that you're putting up 5 stunts and they're putting up 3 stunts. So your room for error technically is higher. Mm-hmm. That's why they separate small and medium teams, because mediums put up 6 to 8 stunts. Small teams can put anywhere from 2 to 3, 4, 5 stunts up. Mm-hmm. You are being judged on the execution and the difficulty of the routine that you perform. If you are putting up more stunts, well, then you have more to be judged on.
Yes.
So the judging is fair, but I think competitions are trying to make it as fair as possible. They can't have divisions where it's like, this is a division for 2 stunt groups and this is a division for 3.
Whether you have bent legs with 5 people or bent legs with 10 people, you still have bent legs. So they're going to just judge you on that.
If you're mad about it, your beef isn't with the judges, it's with the governing body.
Yes.
Okay, next question. How do you navigate toxic cheer gyms? Oh, she mad. I'm assuming you're talking about your own gym. And I think with anything, if there's toxicity in your gym and there's issues, communication is key. Yeah. I think that if you're able to talk with your gym owners, if you're able to talk with your coaches to come to a solution of what's going on, whether it's other parents, whether it's specific coaches, whether it's kids on, your team or your daughter's team, being able to communicate is going to solve most of your problems. Yeah. And I think a lot of times these days, we're afraid to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that we have a lot of issues with communication, and that's what builds up the toxicity. I think if you're a coach, you need to open that door. It's why we do the parent conferences. You need to make your parents feel really comfortable, and gym owners need to also. I think if it's parents and peer-to-peers, well, you're adults. Y'all can figure it out. Yeah. But communication is what I think is key.
Yeah. And I also think that there is a way to approach that. I think sometimes we get lost in a world of like, you have to be super direct and just speak your mind and whatever happens, happens. But I do think that there is a professional way to approach issues without causing more issues. So for example, like if let's say the toxic part of your gym is you're really upset that your coach always gets onto your daughter. Well, coach might not know that you feel that way. So if you can just bring it to their attention and say, hey, just really feel like you get onto Sally every single practice and she thinks you don't like her. I would say more often than not, we really do take that stuff personal and we want our athletes to love their experience. So if you can just bring up the issues or just talk about it, I think a lot can be resolved through just talking things through. And I think that's from all standpoints. I think that's even if you're an athlete on a team and you think that the toxicity is like maybe bullying on your team. Like maybe your coach doesn't see that all the time. So maybe bring it up with your mom or bring it up with your coach and just be like, hey, look, these are the issues I've been having. Because 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, they're going to try and fix the issues because nobody wants anyone to leave the sport. Nobody wants anyone to leave the gym. And if there are real solutions, we're going to always try and find them.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a flyer mom is stressful. How do parents stay calm during competitions? They pray a lot. I think it's hard. I think that no matter how confident, I'm not a mom, but I think no matter how, I am a coach, no matter how confident you feel in the gym, I think when things are important to you and when things matter, you're nervous. We tell our athletes that you're nervous because you care, not because you're unprepared. Mm-hmm. And so I think for parents that are stressed about their daughter and them flying, I think you just have to trust that they're prepared, trust that their coaches have coached them well and trained them. If you want to feel better about it, I guess watch some practices. That might make you feel worse. I'm not sure, depending on how the practice goes. But just remember, it's just cheerleading. I mean, there's going to be mistakes. They're not going to hit 0 every single time. It's like football. You're going to get tackled. and that's okay. Yeah. So just be there for your athlete, encourage them, and make sure that they know you support them whether they hit or they don't.
Being really supportive, I think if I were a flyer mom, I can imagine how that would be really stressful, because I think the go-to is that if a stunt falls, you always say the flyer's name. It's so-and-so's group that fell. And so I think if there are things that happen or your nerves do get really high, just continuing to be there for your athlete and just to reassure them that you love them and you're there for them and you're there to support them. And their coaches are doing the same thing. Nobody tries to make mistakes, but I could see how that would be really stressful being a flyer mom. So cheers to you guys, because I hope you have a good season.
Would you consider sideline cheerleading to be real cheerleaders?
Yeah, I would. Absolutely. I think it's very different. I think they're two different worlds, but yes, they absolutely are real cheerleaders, because that is how our sport came about. It started from sideline. And I think that there is something to be said for the element of game day. I think it's very different from the all-star world. And I think even when we have kids that have done all-star their whole lives and they transition into sideline cheerleaders, it's very different, and they are learning new things. And the stunts that you do, I think, as a game day cheerleader are very different, because you're stunting your peers. You're not stunting flyers that are way younger than you. I think you're learning how to project and you're learning how to do motions, and they are two very different worlds. But yes, I think that sideline cheerleaders are real cheerleaders as well.
Yeah, and we see that when our athletes are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and they get ready. Some of our best all-star athletes get ready to try for high school. They're freaked out.
Yeah.
And it is so different than what we do, but it is very real and it is very competitive. If you've ever watched UIL or some of the state competitions, game day cheer is legit.
Yeah.
And it's just different. So they are definitely real cheerleaders. It is just different than competitive all-star.
Yeah.
But they're both phenomenal.
And they're both honestly exhausting. Like, I know when I cheered in college, you are constantly moving, you're in the heat, you're out on the turf. Like, they're both equally hard, just in different ways.
Absolutely. Someone said, what's a raw score?
Oh, okay. So a raw score is, for example, on the elite score sheet, there you always will hear the score out of 100. So 96 point something, 98 point something. So that's actually not your raw score. Your raw score is out of 50, and then it doubles to give you like your percentage score.
So a lot of times you'll hear coaches say, we scored a 97.2, but our raw score is a 98.5, because that means if you were to execute your score to the best of your ability, that would have been your score.
Yeah. So for example, like if a team scores a 48 out of 50, that doubles to a 96. So your score is a 96. But let's say that that team also had a stunt fall, that's 0.75. So now instead of having a 96, you would have a 95.25.
Right.
So
the raw score is essentially the score you would have gotten if you hit your routine to the best of your ability without deductions.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And I think where it gets confusing is because people forget about the drivers, but those are not true mistakes. Those are just corrections the judges are giving you.
That's awesome. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us on this Q&A and this segment. We love it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, it was so
awesome.
much fun. I love answering all the questions.
Yeah, so keep asking questions and we'll keep talking.
Yay, bye.
Yep.